On August 17th, 2035, we discovered that it had already been 5 years since a massive catastrophe happened. Since that day, various monsters started appearing everywhere, ready to devour anything that moves, turning all humans into mere prey. On the rooftop of a building, we see a young man sitting hiding, and we learn that years later, 40% of humanity is still alive thanks to awakened workers. The young man, still sitting, listens to the radio on his cell phone to pass the time, discrediting the awakened. The announcer says he believed humanity was still alive thanks to walls made of reinforced alloys. Hearing noise, the boy stands up to see what's happening, realizing that the noises are monsters wandering the streets below. Just by looking, he concludes that 6 creatures are Class C above average level, and only one is Class A, exactly as Jill said would happen. Grabbing his binoculars, the young man tries to see more around, spotting an empty parking lot nearby. Reflecting, he says that things are about to get real. Suddenly, yellow lightning appears in the place he was observing. Smiling, the boy states that this is the so-called sudden gate. In the middle of the yellow rays of light, a passage starts to open. Still observing, the young man comments that someone told him that people usually come out of these portals. Proving that the information was true, a man appears, jumping amid the light, landing successfully on the ground right after. While keeping his arms covering his face in an X shape without opening his eyes, the traveler says that he finally came back, raising his arms in celebration from so much joy. But his arrival ends up attracting the attention of the nearby creatures, which immediately start running toward him. Making a grimace, the man realizes that he just arrived and is already screwed. Looking at a creature that looks like a satanic octopus, he wonders why that type of monster is there. Still on top of the building, the boy with the binoculars keeps watching while smiling, showing he was expecting that. Down below, a green creature prepares to unleash a devastating blow on the newcomer, while the spying boy states that it has finally begun. After a while of fighting, the traveler finds himself injured, and a protagonist thinks that to face a high-level Class C monster, it takes at least 10 high-level hunters. The man then launches his attack called the Cradle of Swords, making thousands of swords of light fly toward the monster. Following the traveler's command, who using his hand coordinates the strike and hits several parts of the creature's body. Up there, the protagonist reveals that the man has already eliminated 6 monsters in just 1 hour. The most impressive thing is that he did it all alone, leaving only in the class of monster. Impossible to defeat even if all the class is hunters in the world gathered. Smiling, the nosy boy says that hearing is very different from witnessing a copy master in action. The creature of that hesitation launches an extremely dangerous attack, making the traveler widen his eyes. The protagonist then states that he just needs to wait a little longer for all that power to be his. Dodging the strike while flying in the air, the copy master prepares to counterattack amid powerful rays of light, revealing that he is using his ghost sprint ability, activating right after his demonic blade, capable of cutting countless times in a zigzag. With this beautiful attack, the man successfully takes down the monster. Excited, the boy with the binoculars says that was a battle beyond comprehension. But now that the hunter has also fallen, he must start moving. Getting closer, the boy thinks that up to that moment, everything is happening exactly as Caillou Hyong said it would. Touching the hunter, he calls him and asks if he is okay, remembering that the person who gave him the information said they saved someone and gained their power, but the situation looks bad, and the man on the ground starts coughing up his strawberry juice. The boy then wonders how he can help him. Opening his eyes, the wounded man asks what year it is. Answering, the boy says it is August 2035. Upon hearing that, the man starts getting up, saying that he spent 30 years in the place he came from while only 5 years pass here. Worried, the protagonist asks him not to move too much and to lie back down, but the man says it's already too late. Without showing any reaction, the boy thinks he already knows that the man won't survive the day. Regretting, the traveler states that he shouldn't have consumed most of his power to open the portal. Silent, the boy shows only a sad expression. Knowing his fate, the hunter then reveals that he has something to ask, stating that he wants the boy to find his family and take care of them if they are still alive. Sadly, he hands a photo to his helper. Sweet and cold, the young man says that in fact he is in no condition to take care of anyone. But the man says he's not asking him to do it for free and will therefore give him his power. He only needs his name to start the transfer. We discover that in this world hit by apocalyptic disasters, the protagonist's life has always had 2 common themes. We're taken to one of these themes where the boy finds himself wounded on the ground. In front of him, an armored man says that he finally met Cho Jan-hook. All of this happened in June 2008. Mocking the blonde man tells him not to squirm again like an eel. We see that the boy is unfortunately gravely wounded in the abdomen. Looking forward, he says that it seems this time he won't be able to escape and asks who told the man that he was there. Smiling heavily, the villain says it was Jean Sue, with whom he made a deal of $1 million and the promise not to hunt him down. The information enrages Hook, who curses the traitor. Grabbing a sword, the man says that now that he has the answers he needed, he can finish what he started. Suddenly, the protagonist realizes that those words are familiar. And grabbing a shining stone, he states that it was like this, that through the object, he found a way to reverse his life. Seeing the artifact, the villain shows no reaction. The boy then says that this is the regression stone. Widening his eyes, the man realizes what is about to happen and orders his henchmen to stop the boy, but is too late and a strong light begins to emerge. Smiling, our boy says goodbye and states that he will find Jonathan Curtis in the past. While traveling, all he wishes is that he goes back at least to the time when his siblings were alive. Everything works out, and we find ourselves in the present moment where he went back 23 years with the world still on the brink of collapse, and he is introducing himself to the traveler who said he would pass on his power. The two shake hands to begin the transfer thinking. Huck says that this time things will be different. A strong wind starts, and the system asks the man who previously had the power if he wants his body to disappear afterward. Considering himself a dead man, he clicks to execute this action while the protagonist receives all of his abilities. When the percentage reaches 20%, the man lying on the ground says the boy cannot let his guard down. Since even though the process is underway, if something happens, everything can be canceled. Suddenly, a huge creature appears behind our boy, leaving him in a very complicated situation. Laughing, the hunter says that life really is a mess. Upon seeing that the monster is the same one he thought he had defeated, incapacitated, Park Kang-ho says that in novels, people usually go home and live happily ever after. Warning right after that he will give up his power soon. So the boy must run away immediately because unfortunately there is nothing else that can be done since if life is a mess, one must live with the mess. His last advice is that Hook should adapt and survive as much as he can. Surprising him, the boy grabs an iron bar, stating that he's not crazy, just tired of always running away. Determined, he faces the classic creature, but it does not attack him. Turning its back, it walks away, leaving him confused. Dropping the iron bar, relieved, he says that he thought he was going to die from the tension. The hunter then says that he is very lucky. But the boy replies that it was all thanks to him, because if the monster hadn't been severely wounded. But before he could finish speaking, Hook realizes that the man's body is disappearing and gets scared. Unbothered, the man says that he must fulfill his promise and find his family if he doesn't want to be haunted forever. The transfer process ends, and a message warns that the user's body is inadequate to receive the system, and it will have to be rebuilt through awakening. Catching the boy off guard, the last warning is that the reconstruction process may cause pain. Immediately, Duck feels a crack in his neck and realizes that even though he's trying to act tough, it hurts a lot. His whole body twists, and he says it's as if all his bones are breaking and his skin is shredding. Dropping the act, the boy looks up and starts screaming intensely. The next day in the morning, a man inside a vehicle approaches whistling. Suddenly, something in front of him catches his attention. It's the protagonist who is at the place tying boxes onto a pickup truck. Seeing Kai Chelam approaching, the boy asks what he is doing there. Without answering, the man asks the same question since it was the boy who asked for time off and switched shifts with him. Lying, Puck says that he was just about to go home when a monster appeared and trapped him there. Astonished, his colleague asks if he wanted to die by daring to sleep in that place. Dodging the question, the protagonist asks him to just ignore that fact. Then he says that it's way too early for him to be there without the rest of the team. Also lying, the man says that he has recently been waking up earlier than everyone else. That's why he arrived first, thinking to himself. Our boy says he knows the man is hiding something at that place. We discover that the man has already tried but failed to use the copy master power correctly, which led him to get beaten up so badly by other Awakened members that whoever found him thought he was dead. Thus, the reason for his downfall was very simple, as the fool decided to reveal during his registration that he had the ability to copy, which angered many people who couldn't accept having their precious abilities copied so easily. After saying goodbye and starting the car, Chuck looks at the passenger seat where there are 3 Class B crystals and 4 Class C crystals which he stole from Hyong, even though he feels bad because those items saved his life. Now he just needs to figure out how to use them since he can't sell them. We also discover that Hyong, after awakening with Kang-ho's power, failed to retrieve any of the unknown crystals. So when he returned the next day to recover them, they were all gone. Not protecting the crystals became the greatest regret of the man's life. That's why Heck planned to grab the items as early as possible. Reflecting, The boy thinks that if it's just monster cores, he might be able to sell them discreetly. But if it's the core of a high-level monster, he'll end up attracting the attention of the association and the government, who will start an investigation. For the protagonist, in the worst-case scenario, he won't get the full value and will end up selling the crystals for peanuts. Staring at the phone screen, he concludes that there's only one way out to register quickly as an awakened. Someone answers his call and asks the reason for the call. Smiling, the boy tells Shulman that he has money and would like to meet for some beers, where he'll pay for the drinks if the guy agrees to do him a favor. In the safe zone of Sue, Huck talks to someone inside a building. The man in front of him says he'll pay $600 for all the items he brought, but the boy asks him to raise the price a little. A bit embarrassed, the buyer says that items like those used to cost $800, but demand has declined. Dissatisfied, a boy thinks about what to do next. While the man explains that the population is shrinking, prices are rising, and no one wants to spend. Suddenly, two kids show up crying. Hugging the protagonist, they say they thought he had abandoned them. Peek kneels down to get closer and speak more directly with Choi Eun-jong, his little sister, and Choi Eun-kal, his little brother. Pointing his finger, he asks what the two are doing there instead of being at school. Interrupting, the man says that the boy shouldn't scold the little ones who only came because they were very worried. Then says the boy should start thinking better about what will happen to his siblings if something bad happens to him. Cut then asks the children to stop crying and to come home with him, where he will prepare lunch. His younger siblings start smiling when they hear they will have grilled meat. Choi Eun-jun then calls his attention and says that the grandma from the floor above told him to stop by when he returns because the rent is very overdue. Everyone gets in the car and heads to the apartment as promised. Huck took care of lunch. At the table are his siblings, the grandma, and her grandson. The elderly lady then asks why he brought so much food. Smiling, the protagonist says he stopped by the butcher to buy meat and thought of her. Worried, the woman says he should have saved it for his little siblings. Without replying, Huck hands her an envelope containing the overdue rent money. Grabbing the envelope, the woman says she knows about his situation and has decided to charge only half the amount. Surprised, our boy says it's not necessary. But the old lady's grandson says that in difficult times, it should help each other, so he'd better just accept the offer. His grandmother hits him on the head with a spoon and says that the apartment is hers, so he shouldn't interfere. Joking while bringing his hand to his head, the boy says that when she dies, the house will be his. Threatening to hit him again, the old lady says that it's because of Changu that her stomach has been upset. Since he doesn't study and just wanders around doing nonsense while lying that he's studying, the boy then states that he's preparing so that when he awakens, he can finally learn from real hunters, because the era now belongs to the awakened and the hunters and things like college are no longer necessary. Annoyed, the lady asks Skuck to talk to her grandson because the young man usually listens to him. Suddenly, the protagonist's phone rings. Going to the balcony, he answers, and on the other end, Ho-min says that he spoke with his guild leader and the man asked him to show up, but he must go knowing that he won't get paid. He may be added as a regular member of the group in a secondary role if he does well. The protagonist agrees, and his friend asks why he suddenly wants to become a porter. Unable to tell the truth, the boy says that his current job is getting difficult, making him look for other options. Hellman then says that in that case, he should show up at Gate 7 on the west wall the next day at 7:30 in the morning. Ending the call, our boy says that everything is going according to plan. The next day, he arrives at the gate, determined to copy the tanker skill and go straight to the association to register. His friend calls his name and approaches, saying that he arrived early. Smiling, the boy waves but can only think about the plan he set up. Man then calls his leader, Hong, who is a tanker, and says that this is the friend he mentioned earlier. The man introduces himself and says that he's the oldest, so the boy should feel free to ask anything. Extending his hand for a handshake, the boy says he's looking forward to working with him. Hyung shakes his hand and says the feeling is mutual without even knowing his skills were copied. A message pops up for Hook informing him that he can choose 3 of the skills he copied. Without hesitation, he chooses the skills Iron Skin, Shield Attack, and Overload. The system notifies Hook that the skill copying is complete and that they can be viewed in the skill menu. Our boy thinks that it only took enough time during a mere handshake, and now he has the ability of a tanker. Standing in front of him, the armored man watches, not understanding the reason for the smile on his face. Min then asks what he's doing, or rather why he's smiling like that in such a creepy way while still holding the handshake, easing the awkward atmosphere. The man says that he's got a strong grip and laughs. Embarrassed, the protagonist lets go of the team leader's hand and apologizes, but the man says it's fine, then asks him to get in the vehicle that is just ahead. A little closer to the car, we can see 2 guys chatting and a girl, and another guy who seem to be analyzing their bows. The driver is already ready, and near him is a young woman distracted while looking at her phone. Giving instructions, The armored man asks Jun-hook to greet the group members before boarding. But the boy can only think about how the skills of these people will be useless when he copies the abilities of higher-level awakened, concluding that even so, he'll have to copy the group member's skills, even if he deletes them later. Starting the trip, the truck leaves with the team. Sitting, our boy reveals that he has already copied 13 skills by that moment, where 3 are healer skills. We return to the girl who was distracted earlier, and she is still on her phone. Looking at her, the boy reveals that he also grabbed a mapping skill and 2 hunter skills and 7 negotiator skills, stating that the most amazing thing about all this is that now he can use them all together. We see a place full of buildings where lizard-like creatures with purple tongues and red eyes run, apparently, to attack someone. It's Hai, who using his shield asks the creature where it thinks it's going. Meanwhile, the protagonist keeps thinking about how having skills in multiple roles can make him powerful depending on the combinations he makes. Lee Danny joins the battle, following the orders of his leader, and swiftly shoots using his bow and arrows, hitting one of the monsters squarely in 3 different spots. The leader then orders Aijin to finish the battle quickly. Hidden on top of one of the buildings, the girl says that she understands. Then she fires an arrow at high speed that hits the monster right in the eye. The creature falls, and Hyong praises everyone for the good work, informing them that only 2 enemies remain. In the back, just observing, Jung-hook wonders if he should try to register just for fun, concluding that it's better to do it when the hunt is over since there's no need to complicate things. Some time passes from that moment. Approaching, the team leader says it was a good hunt and praises the protagonist's endurance, who carried a large amount of byproducts throughout that day. Suddenly, something catches the man's attention. We see another guy approaching with a bag on his back, saying that he can't take it anymore. Shinman then says that his friend was quite famous at school because of his fists. The man asks if he's talking about the school before the catastrophe, confirming the boy says that the protagonist, even without training, left all the athletes in the dust. We see that Jun-hook is listening to everything and gets embarrassed when the team leader asks if he was a delinquent, but his friend says that he only hit those who deserved it and had the dream of becoming a detective. Ending the conversation, the man hands our boy an envelope containing the payment for the day. However, the boy says he doesn't need it, but Hyong still tells him to take it and just say thank you, since if it weren't for his help, things would have turned out differently, which leads him to ask if he wouldn't like to continue being a porter. Smiling, our boy says he'll think about it. The man walks away and says they will meet again soon. Kamin then asks if the protagonist is going to the barbecue later, but he says he already has plans for that night. Curious, the young man asks what plans he's talking about and whether it's a date with a girl. Some more time passes, and we see the SU Awakened Association building. At the exclusive counter for tankers, a female employee looks nervous about something she just heard. In front of her is Hook, and the girl asks if he can repeat what he just said. Repeating, the boy says that he came to register as an awakened, and the girl asks if he's sure he's an awakened tanker. Confirming, he says that he awakened as one that very morning. Not believing it, the girl looks at him with an expression that says she isn't sure whether that's even possible. Nervous, the boy asks if there's something wrong with what he said. The girl then says that it's just that he's the first person to awaken as a tanker in months and congratulates him for that, saying that to continue the process, she just needs his ID. Our boy quickly hands over the document, pointing to a bench where there are other people. The girl says that he can sit there and wait. With not much to do, the boy sits down. As a feeling of sadness starts to overflow on his face, putting his hand on his head, he thinks about how he thought he was dreaming when he opened his eyes for the first time after returning. Then remembers when he was imprisoned and his siblings visited him, but ended up dying a car accident, which made him cry for days without stopping, and was also the reason why he decided to become a bad person. But when he went back to the past and found the 2 alive, his heart was filled only with joy, and that's why he thought he was dreaming at first. So when he realized it was all real, he promised never to lose the people he cares about again. And for that, he will protect everyone with everything he has. Activating his system, he decides to take a look at the reports. Then noticing that the resistance varies from 6,000 to 15,000, while strength is randomly assigned between 2,000 and 5,000, which means that his start was actually pretty good for a first awakening. Suddenly, a notification appears saying that the core generation is in progress, which leaves him confused. Even without knowing what it is, Duck decides to wait for the process to finish to find out. Suddenly, someone approaches and calls his name. He turns his head to see who it is and comes face to face with the girl who attended him, standing next to a man in a lab coat, smiling. The girl hands back his ID and says that the identity verification has been successfully completed. Now he just needs to follow the doctor to take the test. Introducing himself, the man extends his hand and says his name is Lim Jahun. Our boy also introduces himself and says it's a pleasure to meet him. The two then shake hands, and the man says that he prepared everything in advance, so the test can start immediately. In the elevator, the boy reveals in his thoughts that he tried to copy the man's ability, but he is not an awakened, which to him is strange since he thought that those who work for the association had abilities. Inside a room, the man says that the test has 3 stages. The first being the measurement of resistance and strength levels through a device. Cook is lying down with several wires connected to his body, and the doctor warns that the measurement will begin and that it will take 10 minutes to complete, so he should relax. About the second stage, the man says it involves using his unique ability, in this case, shield attack. After some time, there's the boy with his shield in hand, preparing to fight a dummy monster while a doctor and another person watch everything through a glass window. Jae-hin then informs that the aggression rate measurement will begin, and the boy just needs to attack the dummy in front of him. The protagonist obeys without thinking twice, and the man says he can feel free to hit wherever he wants. Our boy then chooses to strike the Dumei's head with the shield, leaving the doctors completely stunned. Move on to the third stage and see the doctor handing Huck a cup with what seems to be hot coffee. The man then says that due to some problems with the selection of evaluators, the third part will only happen in 2 days. Grabbing the coffee, the boy asks if everything is fine with today's tests, and the doctor says yes. He just needs to go to the reception to pick up the basic equipment. Exciting, our boy says through his teeth that he can't believe the day has finally come when he will receive the association's standard equipment. Sharing a concern, Jae-hun says that he's uneasy about the decreasing number of tankers and healers. Sipping the drink, the protagonist just listens carefully. The man then says that most people forced to awaken are choosing the negotiator or support categories. Not to mention that awakening stones are hard to find, especially those for tankers and healers. Reflecting a bit, the protagonist concludes that the biggest problem of all is that even with a stone, there is no guarantee the person will awaken, and he, as a criminal, couldn't register as an awaken. Pausing for a moment, the doctor apologizes and says he just got excited seeing a tanker after so long. Standing up, Cook says it's no problem. Wrapping things up, Jae-hun says the boy must show up at the scheduled time to complete the third test, which will be sent via text message the next day. The man extends his hand to the protagonist, and he stares at it, then smiles as he returns the handshake, saying he's looking forward to working with the man. Outside, we can see the sky getting darker as Mate approaches. With a suitcase, Hook walks down the street while calling someone answering. Who asks what happened? The boy then says it's nothing serious. He just wanted to let him know that he awakened as a tanker earlier. Shocked, the guy on the other end asks if he's being serious or just joking. Looking inside a building window, our boy says he wouldn't joke about something like that, then decides to walk into what seems to be a shop, thinking that he must be in the right place while his friend finally believes what he heard. Laughing, the guy impressed, as it's unbelievable. Because they were together just a few hours ago, and now suddenly his friend became a tanker. Without getting an answer, the young man asks if Heck is still on the line. Our boy is distracted looking at a front leg model of a mantis that costs an incredible $3 million. Remembering the phone, he says the call got a bit unstable, then talks about his visit to the association earlier. Revealing the reason for the call, he says that since only the third part is left, he'd like to know if he can go on another hunt to observe. His friend then asks why if he already saw how things work. Answering, the boy says that he was too focused on carrying stuff to pay attention to all the steps Hong was taking. Suddenly finding something, our boy gets happy. Still on the line, Humin says he'll check with the team leader and get back to him with an answer. The boy thanks him and grabbing the item, tells the seller that he would like to take the bracelet along with an exit solution. Thinking to himself, he says that if he's not mistaken, that is the artifact used by Jaden Russell, who ranked 3rd among the villains. This was before the regression when he was in 8th place in the ranking and ended up going out for drinks with a man who explained to him the method to acquire the bracelet and the main potions. Without saying anything, the seller just stares at him coldly, still thinking about the 30% efficiency boost he'll gain in all abilities with the item. The boy also stays silent. Breaking the ice, he then asks why the man is staring at him like that. Apologizing for the intrusion, the seller asks if the boy registered as an awaken earlier. Our boy says yes, and, out of nowhere, the man raises his fist as if he's going to punch him in the face, but catching him by surprise, he stops his arm right in front of his face, saying that he knew he was right. Smiling, the man says that he's also an awakened and his ability is teleportation. Relieved, the protagonist doesn't show much reaction while thinking about how his heart raced, thinking he was about to get punched. Extending his arm to return the fist bump, he thinks to himself that in this case, he should copy that ability, too. Another man appears and introduces himself as Huang Mansu, and awakened with the ability of spatial manipulation. Saying it's a pleasure to meet him, Huck thinks that this is yet another ability he would really like to have. The first seller then says that he overheard the boy's phone conversation and asks if he really is a tanker. Next to him, the other man says that having that ability makes him practically ignoble among the awakened. Our boy then says that he didn't expect to find awakened like them there and asks if that's a side job. The two men deny it and say that working at the shop is actually their main job. Explaining, the seller with slightly longer hair says that with so many people awakening with support abilities, it became hard to find a job. The other says that to make a living, he decided to become the owner of a store that sells antiques and supplies for awakened. He then hands over the exhorter solution that the boy asked for and says that both items will cost 300,000 karo. Heck smiles while thinking that now he has all the materials he needs. The bracelet, the solution, the above-ranked crystals that are at his home, and his strawberry juice that will link him to all the objects. Already at home, he looks at the bracelet, which is now glowing in shades of purple, and concludes that he did it. Putting the accessory on his arm, the boy reveals that its name is Twilight. Suddenly, a message appears notifying that the 38th artifact among the 101 created by the original Master System has been activated and that the toy bracelet has now been registered as a combined artifact in the system and can be seen alongside other artifacts already registered. We also discover that since the accessory was registered by a user of the original system, it has been fully unlocked. A bit confused, Hook wonders what the information about the 101 artifacts means. His phone rings, snapping him out of his thoughts. Looking at the device, he says it scared him. On the other end of the line is Chielman, who says that he told Hung about him. But the man said it's impossible that he awakened as a tanker. And for that reason, he'll only believe it if he sees it with his own eyes. Our boy laughs and says he thought he had been rejected. His friend laughs too and says he can relax. Out of nowhere, the spatial manipulation ability that our boy copied activates and a portal opens. Even scared, he starts passing his arm through while Chillman asks him not to be late. Next day, grabbing his suitcase, the boy says that he'll be there at the scheduled time and that he'll see him tomorrow. The next day, we see the entire team gathered in front of Gate 7 as agreed. Someone shouts greetings, leaving everyone there shocked. It's Hook, who is wearing the gear he got from the association and holding shield. Killman, still with his mouth open, comments about the outfit the boy is wearing, and Hung interrupts, confirming that he really did become a tanker. Also shocked, the man asks how that happened in just one day. Embarrassed and blatantly lying, the protagonist says that he awakened while heading home. The leader then says that it's truly impressive since natural awakening rates have drastically dropped. Agreeing, the boy states that the next day he will take the final test of his ability and wanted to know if the man could help him. The man replies that he's not sure if he can actually teach him anything, but he does have a piece of advice to give as someone who started this job before him. Grabbing his shield, he asks if the young man knows why he always carries it. He then states that it's not because he awakened as a tanker, but because he chose to. Because when facing monsters, there always comes a time when the body gets exhausted. So, the boy must always remember that what will help him recover is not skills or stats, but the determination he has. With the advice given, the group heads to the battlefield. We can see that right in the center of the place, there is a monster that looks like a mix between a bear and an armadillo sleeping. Hidden, the leader asks Hung if he has identified the type of prey and its location. The young man says yes, and that it is a true Decker. Hung then says that in that case, they can begin. He then orders Jin Dejuan to check the monster's location again. Without even thinking, the young man starts mapping. Facing the map, the leader informs everyone in the monster type, stating that they are true Deckers, monsters that have low attack power and slow movements, but defensibility is high as an E-rank monster. Worried, Queen says he doesn't know if they have enough strength. One of his companions then says that it hasn't even started yet, but he already feels exhausted. Another young man, also concerned, says he's afraid the monster will come running toward him. Encouraging everyone, the leader reinforces the fact that the prey is slow and says that his team is one of the best veteran teams he knows. Approaching the young woman with long hair jokes that in this case, it looks like the day will be easy for her as the healer. Hong then asks Jill if all the traps are ready, and the young man says yes. Grabbing a shield, he asks Shu Min and Dong to follow him. Haisu and Hook must stay where they are. The protagonist says he understood the command. While watching part of the team moving away, he thinks that something there seems strange because he is sure that the reason his friend's group was wiped out in the past was due to the appearance of another monster. But if a creature were a Dumiki, the team should have handled it. So, he needs to find out why everyone died. Looking around, our boy concludes that something there definitely doesn't feel right. Back on the battlefield, the tanker leader asks Een if everything is ready, and she confirms yes. The man then orders the girl to open fire. The young woman shoots an arrow and hits the monster's shell directly. She then says that she will proceed to the next point as planned. Standing up, the monster shows that it is furious, and the leader shouting asks everyone get ready for the fight. At his side, his partners affirm that they understood. Standing on just 2 legs, the creature prepares to attack with all its strength. Following the plan, the archer starts shooting, landing 3 precise arrows. The bear-armadillo hybrid roars, showing that it felt the hit, making the young man realize that he actually did a good job. Han then praises him and asks him to keep his distance. But the young man says he's going to charge in, leaving the man worried since that wasn't the plan. Face to face with the monster, a young man states that he doesn't want to just poke at its back, but finish it and go home. His arrows hit the true Decker's armpit, making it angrier than ever. The leader then asks the boy to stop being stupid and listen to him. But the boy mocks, saying that the creature is so slow it can't even hit him. He just didn't know he was talking too much as the monster then hits him with its fists right after, throwing him hard against a wall. Worried, Chielman shouts, calling his friend, deciding that he's also going in now because he's angry. Jumping, the young man prepares to drive his sword into the monster, hitting it right on the shell, causing sparks to fly. Unfortunately for him, the blow wasn't fatal, and the monster is now eyeing him. Screaming, he warns the team that the creature's shell is too hard and his sword didn't even scratch it. Turning around, the true Decker decides to focus back on the boy who was thrown. About to be finished, the boy tries to shield himself from the creature's sharp claws. But Kyuong steps in front to save him, attacking the enemy with all his strength with a shield. With just this blow, the monster apparently goes back to sleep, but wakes up and stands in the blink of an eye. Shouting, the leader asks Tumun to get ready for close combat, while Iji and Donyuk attack from a distance. He then starts activating his skill, creating blue waves that appear everywhere. Unbothered, the creature keeps roaring, but the man confidently states that now he will finish it in aggressor mode. Using its paws, the true Decker tries to punch the man, but only hits his shield. Suddenly, an arrow flies by and catches his attention, and the archer tells EJYN that it's time. From above, the girl starts shooting nonstop, successfully hitting the monster's face. Irritated, the creature decides to change its strategy, and curling up, it activates its armadillo mode. H orders at that moment for Chi Min to begin the melee attack. Behind the monster, the young man obeys immediately and charges for a back attack while his leader attacks from the front. Striking the creature, the tanker orders everyone to maintain basic attacks until he gives the next command. The protagonist's friend, also attacking, says that just looking at the monster's back already makes him tired. Our boy is on the battlefield watching and listening to everything from a distance. By his side, the healer says that if this works, the hunt will end right there, then reveals that she wishes to join because true Deckers don't appear often. Only once or twice a year if someone is lucky. Jack then asks how many times the team has faced one of those, and the girl says only 3 times in the last 5 months. Smiling, she says the boy seems very eager to learn more, and he apologizes for asking so much. The young woman then offers him a device and says it can help him. Called the Jeremy M7. The measuring device was developed by Jeremy Corp, and it will serve for him to observe and absorb everything he needs for the test the next day. Placing the device's lens over his eyes, our boy realizes that he can now analyze interesting stats. The young woman then says that for reference, a true Decker has 30,000 health and its shield 150,000, which is quite impressive for a monster. Kook realizes that breaking the monster shell is going to take forever. Suddenly, Hyong Nim yells and says that they have a problem because the life signals of the 4 members of the team on the other side have completely disappeared from the map. Young asks if he's saying that those members have been eliminated. Nervous, the protagonist asks if the information is accurate. In the distance, we can see that one of the structures has started shaking, causing large cracks in the walls. A giant hole opens with a loud crash, and everyone realizes it's the creature called Mantis, a giant praying mantis with claws full of strawberry juice. Seeing the creature approaching, our boy says that the situation is not good at all. Still in battle, the leader desperately asks how long until the monster reaches them. Sweet and cold, the blonde boy says at most 2 minutes or less. Shouting, the man orders Hook and Hesso to get out of the area urgently and take cover. The protagonist finally understands why he had been feeling uneasy while hearing the orders. Taking action, he grabs the healer's hand, stating that they need to get out of there quickly. Panicking, the girl says she understands, but realizing that the boy is heading toward Hyong, she asks where he's going. Responding, he says that because of a short distance, getting out of there is practically impossible. The leader sees them approaching and asks why the boy isn't retreating as ordered. With a shield in hand, he says that's not an option because the monster is too fast. Not to mention the presence of the true Decker. So, if the 2 monsters team up, things are going to get really ugly, and it will definitely be completely wiped out. Coming with blood in its eyes, The mantis prepares to attack with everything it has. Face to face with the monster, our boy says that in this case, all they can do is hold out as long as they can. Desperate, Kyung asks if the young man has gone crazy, since it seems like he thinks all awakened tankers are the same, forgetting that he's just a rookie. While they argue, a monster keeps grumbling in front of the two. The leader then states that if a complete beginner who hasn't even gone through virtual combat attacks a mantis recklessly, his explanation is interrupted by the mantis, who gets tired of waiting and strikes. With nothing else to do, Huck tries to protect himself with his shield, while replying that either way, once he gets his registration card, he'll be going into live combat, which means tankers need to succeed no matter what, even being rookies. Quickly, our boy starts running while the mantis continues pounding on his shield. Jumping. The boy decides to fight back and attacks the monster's head, leaving the others shocked by his sheer determination. Min then says that he is an idiot because this is not just a simple test, but a real battle that could cost him his life. Unbothered, the protagonist says he knows that, but it's time for them to worry about something else, which is the true Decker right behind them. Because if it's not stopped, everyone there will be wiped out at once. The bear armadillo monster attacks the two young men mercilessly. Hung puts a shield in front, so he doesn't get hit directly, and asks Jungkook to join the protagonist to buy time as a negotiator. Immediately obeying, the other young man joins our boy. Holding his shield with all his strength, the leader asks Keeman to stay and help him with that monster. Suddenly, the creature makes an unexpected move that ends up throwing the man far away. On the ground, he asks Jeel to use a binding trap on the true Decker urgently. Without hesitation, the Void does what was asked. The trap starts spinning toward the monster at high speed, binding its legs with chains when it gets close enough. Shouting, the boy says that it will last for 5 minutes. While getting up, the leader thinks that with that monster in front and the man is behind, the only way out is blocked, which makes the situation desperate. With all his strength, Cuck uses his shield to attack and defend himself, accompanied by the other boy who shoots arrows every 5 seconds. But the blows have no effect on the giant mantis. Unable to give up, our boy strikes the creature once more, making it look at him with its glowing red eyes. Suddenly, something can sit straight in the head, surprising even our boy. From the top of the building, the archer praises Soo E-jin for the attack, but the girl says this is no time for compliments. The mantis quickly realizes where the blow that hit it came from, and determined, it starts retreating toward the girl. Huck shouts and tells the young woman to get out of there immediately, but she realizes that it may be too late because the mantis legs are already at her window. The young woman is hit directly, and the strike causes numerous injuries. Down below, the archer screams her name in desperation, while continuing to shoot arrows, hoping to draw the monster's attention. Without success, he fears that everything is now lost. Worried, the healer next to the protagonist asks what she should do. Looking at his bracelet, our boy concludes that he was too careless because he forgot that he won't get stronger overnight. Besides thinking that using the shield attack twice would keep his artifact activated. Going through his system, he decides to check the options to prevent Yunin from passing away. Looking at the various pieces of information on his screen, he thinks that maybe he should use skills to increase the bracelet's effectiveness by 50%, which could be quite risky. With no other way, the boy decides to do it, even if it costs too much. Waves of blue light begin radiating around his body, reaching the broken window where the mantis is about to enter and finish the girl, who is on the ground, injured, and unable to escape. While Heck hopes with all his strength that his action will draw the monster back, beside him, the young healer realizes that she needs to do something because she won't be able to bear seeing her friend die without even trying to help. She runs off, leaving our boy alone. With nothing else to do, he looks ahead and realizes that his strategy worked. The teen leader asks E-jin to leave the area, but Hux, as the young woman will be fine. Han asks how he can say something like that, and our boy replies that he managed to make the monster leave her. Not believing it, the man asks what the boy is talking about, but he doesn't even answer because he is already charging at the mantis. While striking with his shield, he thinks that it is too risky to keep his ability activated with just basic attacks. Concluding that he will need to use the copied skills because he has no choice, he activates the destructive body skill along with a negotiator skill. The giant praying mantis almost hits him, but he manages to dodge with a jump. With the skills activated, Huck states that now his basic attack damage is comparable to that of a dealer. Suddenly, a sensation takes over his body. Smiling, he thinks that he has felt this many times before the regression, stating that it's as if all the cells have awakened, just like it happened before he became a villain, and that it was this feeling that allowed him to rank 8th among the villains. The name of this sensation is hyperperception. Our boy goes back to attacking now, with his old sense activated because of his strength when the mantis legs starts to crack. Inside the building, Ian is finally able to stand up. But when she tries to use her weapon, she ends up dropping the main part, the arrow, because of a nasty wound on her arm, which is making her lose a lot of strawberry juice and draining her strength. Suddenly, Haisu appears, surprising the young woman. Using her power, she begins healing her friend while asking her not to scream because it distracts her. The archer then says that she should be helping cook instead of healing her wounds. But her friend says that the boy will be fine and that she can't do anything while his health is still full. Looking out the window, she says that Cook is crazy and looks just like the team leader since he hasn't taken any damage so far. We return to seeing our boy attacking, showing how truly strong he is. While Cheelman and Hun continue fighting against the true Decker, the creature roars in fury, but the team leader states that its shield won't last much longer. So, the boy shouldn't waste time with basic attacks, but instead amplify his skills before the trap expires and do it without worrying about him. The monster, which is almost free, prepares to strike the man. Shielding himself, he says that this was the attack he had been waiting for. Just before the blow hits him, Kung starts running to strike first while someone warns that the trap will only last 10 more seconds. Shouting, the man tells Shumin that the time has come. Understanding the message, the young man draws his weapon, then activates his critical attack on the panel. We can see a zigzagging blue beam of light coming from the monster's body while the young man prays for it to explode. His attack works, and the true Decker begins to crumble into dust. Hung then shouts and informs the entire team that this side is clear. Standing in front of what was once the creature, the protagonist's friend spots a red crystal and says that besides the item, he also got a skill card. Ending his happiness, the leader says that this is no time for that and orders the boy to go help Hick. Our boy keeps striking nonstop, drawing green slime from the mantis. Seeing the scene, the man, who is also a tanker, asks how that is even possible. Looking back while fighting alone, the boy asks Chman to get out of there if he's already done what he needed to do. Stopping for getting closer, young man says that he really is crazy because besides fighting without help, he's now giving orders, too. Agreeing with our boy, H asks him to treat this as practical experience since he seems to be handling it well. Heck asks if he's sure, and the man says yes, then asks if anyone has anything against it. Everyone says they're in favor, but Ijin says she's not the type of person who can live with debts. Then attacks from the top of the building with an arrow, which ends up missing the mantis. Determined to finish the job, our boy jumps, ready to deliver a fatal blow, then drives a shield straight into the monster's head, which stops resisting and collapses to the ground. Mouth wide open, Young calls Kmen's attention and asks if he's absolutely sure that his friend awakened as a tanker. The day ends and night falls on the battlefield. We see the team leader asking everyone to hurry, so they can get out of there quickly, since even knowing everyone is tired. If they stay too long, other monsters might end up showing up. Hack listens carefully while cleaning the green slime off his shield. Hellman approaches and asks if he's ever used that before. Confused, the boy asks what he's referring to. Explaining, the young man says he's talking about hyperperception because he knows he used it in tough fights back in school. Our boy doesn't answer, and his friend says there's no way he never used it after everything he did earlier. Then asks if the boy is okay since he used to get headaches after using the skill. Putting away his shield, the protagonist says he's fine and that it's probably because of the awakening. His friend says that he really is very lucky and owes him a beer, which must be drunk that night with no excuses. Seeing his phone ringing, Huck says it'll have to be another day because he needs to spend time with his siblings. Catching him by surprise, Hung approaches and asks who he is and if he really awakened the day before, since there's no way someone could fight like that being just a rookie tanker. Turning around, the boy says, maybe. Worried, Keelmin tries to stop him from saying something stupid. But the boy simply says that since the situation was dire, maybe he released so much adrenaline that his strength became superhuman. Convinced it's a lie, the man asks if the boy really expects him to fall for that story. Our boy then decides to stay silent. The leader turns to the other members and says there's something he'd like to tell everyone. Then states that on that day, Cut defeated a mantis alone, but is not officially registered yet. So, even though it was an emergency, if anyone finds out, the whole team could suffer consequences. That's why everyone must keep their mouths shut and not tell anyone about what happened that day. The archer smiles in relief at H's words. Laughing, the other two guys say they're not stupid and will take what happened to the grave. Surprised, our boy calls the man, but he thanks him, leaving him more confused than before. Explaining, the leader says that if it weren't for him, everyone there would be dead, and that's why he'll include him in the profit distribution as a tanker, of course. Mouth wide open, the boy asks if that doesn't mean the others will receive less than they expected. Haisu approaches and says he's right, but knows that no one would complain. Smiling, she says that in any case, if someone does, the boy should let her know because she'll immediately stop healing whoever is against it. Our boy's phone rings again, and he says he needs to answer. Curious, the girl asks if it's his girlfriend. Smiling, the boy denies it and says it's just his siblings, but we find out he's lying because the one calling is the association, which leaves him intrigued because he has no idea why they're trying to contact him. We're taken to the association building. Inside a room, the boy asks why his test was moved forward. Responding, Jae-hoon says it's because the hunters dispatched to Thailand are returning that night. Not understanding, the boy asks what that has to do with anything. The man then explains that a C-rank monster appeared in Bangkok a week ago, which made hunters from other places be dispatched, but in that mission, Korea scored higher than Japan. So, naturally, the association is focusing its attention on that. Thinking, Hut concludes that they just want to get rid of him quickly, stating out loud that he's ready to begin. While the man apologizes for the change in plans, explaining the test, Jae-hyun says it will be conducted as a simulated battle in a virtual combat room. Suddenly, a monster starts being generated in front of the boy, and he realizes it's similar to the simulation room before the regression. Interrupting his thoughts, the doctor warns that the monster he will face is a Xerus F rank, and the test will last 1 hour. So, the longer he holds out, the more points he earns. Looking back, the man asks the others if everything is ready. In a room with him are Hyong, a guy with glasses, and a woman with long hair. The three of them will be the judges for the test. Nodding, the tanker confirms that everyone is ready and the test can begin. Speaking again to the protagonist, Jae-hyun announces that the test has started. We see the monster charging straight at the boy while he thinks about the information he received about the high-ranking hunters arriving at the association. Putting his shield in front of his body, he decides to begin an attack, causing the monster to retreat backward. Thinking again, Hook concludes that he needs to take the opportunity to copy the skill of one of the hunters who will arrive. While the monster smiles at him, returning the smile, the boy thinks that if he plays this right, he will definitely succeed. But now he needs to focus on the test. Thinking about his super sense, he states that he could pass using just that. But with the average hunting time for that monster being 4 hours, if his stats in the Stage 3 test are better than those in Stage 2, he will definitely become suspicious to the association. So, with textbook-like movements, it's better that he fills the time without doing too much or too little to avoid drawing attention. 3 hours later, Jae-hoon realizes that the boy has only used the same movement, which wasn't what he expected given the confidence the boy showed before the test started. He looks at the judges, who continue watching, visibly impressed. Smiling, Hung states that he is witnessing the birth of a super rookie after a very long time. The woman joins the conversation and says that the boy's aggression levels are quite stable. The guy with glasses then says that the most incredible thing is that the young man dodges attacks with minimal movement. Catching the attention of the two judges, the woman says she needs to go to the bathroom, but will be back soon. She then leaves. Hyong says that he ate too much for breakfast and also needs to step out for a bit, leaving the man in a suit alone with the doctor in the room. Taking off his glasses, the man says that continuing the test doesn't really make much sense anymore. Jad-hun starts sweating cold and asks if he's sure about that. Without saying anything else, the judge grabs his phone and says that he'll step out for a while too. Outside, we see that the woman is also on a call talking about Hook. Hug is also on the phone talking about how incredible the boy is, then asks the person on the line if they remember how textbook-like movements are actually the hardest. The other man with glasses also informs someone that the protagonist is extremely good. We see Kuk still fighting the monster while the man says that since there are 2 other guilds in play, they need to act first to make sure no one else can make a move. The test ends, and the woman at the counter hands a document to the boy. Smiling, she says that this is his awakening registration certificate and praises him for the good work. Our boy takes the document and checks the information. The woman then says that getting a rank C on the first awakening is really incredible, and he asks why. She responds that it's something rare since most people usually fall somewhere between rank F and E. Leaving the building, Cook wonders why he got rank C again if he didn't do anything special. Deciding to be happy because at least now he has his registration, which means he can live a happy life doing things legally with his younger siblings. Suddenly, someone shouting catches his attention. Looking to the side, he sees a crowd of what appear to be fans screaming the names of their idols. A trio composed of 2 men and a woman appears, and Hike realizes they are the high-ranking hunters being Giant, a negotiator and second-ass sorceress. Kim Yino, who holds the national first ranking, and Lee Dao, who is first place in the tanker ranking. Next to Dao, the protagonist notices that he seems to be in a bad mood and wonders if he should gather the courage and talk to the man. Smiling, he decides to go for it no matter what happens. Our boy steps in front of the trio, surprising them. A little awkward, he says that he's also a fan and that he's honored to meet them. Being friendly, Jay asks if he would like an autograph, but the boy declines, leaving the girl embarrassed. He then says that actually he's a fan of Lee Dao. Irritated, the man asks what he's talking about, making our boy shrink and sweat even more as he thinks that now he's screwed. Leaning forward a bit, the man asks him to repeat what he just said, making him even more scared. Staring at the tanker, Cook wonders what that look means because it definitely looks like a villain stare. The man walks toward him, and he wonders if this is when he's going to get beaten up. Looking even angrier, the man asks again what he just said. With no other choice, our boy states that he only said he was a fan of his. Lee Dao looks back and asks his companions if they heard that. Kim Yunho laughs, and Jian says they were so close, leaving the protagonist a little confused. The woman then says that if it weren't for that idiot who showed up, while the tanker says that now they know he has fans. We go back to 30 minutes earlier where inside a limousine on the way to the association, the trio was having conversation. Sitting, the negotiator recalls when someone approached saying they were a fan and dude drove them away. And since then, she hadn't seen anyone else say they were his fan. Crossing her arms, she says she's never seen anyone like that and that he knows she doesn't like men who lie. The man says he's not lying because being who he is, of course, he also has fans. The woman then says that if someone says they're his fan when they arrive at the association, she'll do something he really wants. But if not, he'll have to help her with something. Curious, Dao asks what kind of help she wants, explaining. The woman says that as he knows, the plan is to hunt a C-rank monster this time, but the guild doesn't have enough tankers. So, if he loses the bet, he'll have to be the main tanker just once, but completely for free without receiving a single dime. We return to the present moment where the man smiles, having won the bet, and the wounded scowls, having lost. Dao asks again if Huck is really his fan, while our boy wonders if he should run away. Surprisingly, the man extends his hand, saying that he'd like to sign something, but doesn't have a pen, so he can only offer a handshake. Frozen, the boy wonders what's happening here, but decides to extend his hand and return the handshake. In order to copy the man's ability, Dao then asks what his name is, and the boy introduces himself. Handing him a card, the man says he can call if he ever needs help. Kim Yunho joins the conversation and asks if the boy's name is really Hook. Still confused, he says yes. The man then smiles and introduces himself while also extending his hand. With a handshake, the boy copies the man's ability, and the man says that this is truly amazing because he didn't expect to find a national treasure in that place. The tanker then asks what his friend is talking about. Hugging him, Kim Yongo says that someone who's his fan has to be considered a national treasure, and both step away because they need to hurry to speak with the president of the association. The woman stays behind and says that this is annoying. Hack approaches saying that he's also her fan who like a handshake, something he'll consider an honor for his whole life. But Jaeon just turns her back and walks away, completely ignoring him. Intrigued, the boy thinks her personality is strange since earlier she even offered an autograph. And unable to get the last ability, he decides to leave since he already got more than he needed. At the same time in New York at the American Awaken Association, one man asks another what they're looking at on the computer screen. Both are watching Huck's test, which after 3 hours had only consumed 3% of his life force. Curious, the bald man asks which country the boy is from, and the blonde man says he's from Korea. His partner, intrigued, asks if it could be a fake video, but the blonde man denies it, stating that they don't even know they're being monitored. He picks up the phone, but his friend asks him to wait, saying it's too early to inform the higher-ups. Paolo then asks Kevin if he knows how many rank S Awaken there are now, then answering that there are only 5 who started as rank C, so all countries are watching this type of Awaken closely. Kevin stays silent, and his friend says that if they lose this boy, they might be losing a future rank as talent. The screen shows intriguing results that should be investigated more deeply. A voice asks the partner to take a good look at the images. A building under a clear, sunny sky appears in the middle of quiet streets. Calmly, a man crosses the portal located at the top of the building. He approaches a door and touches the doorknob. While going down the stairs, he analyzes the evolution of his defense and resistance skills. According to the system, universal skills increase defense and significantly reduce damage. Shortly after, a scene of ancient ruins under a clear, peaceful sky can be seen. A terrifying monster seems ready to destroy its enemies. The fighter prepares to use stun abilities with a shield. Soon after, he activates the skill Shield's Ton, interrupting the enemy creature's attack. At that moment, the monster seems to feel the impact of the blow, and its strength becomes reduced. Realizing that the opponent has taken some damage, he shouts for Kim Yu. Kim Yu's unique abilities do not increase attack power. The system highlights all changes showing increases in speed and evasion. A compliment is made for the impressive power of the lightning flash attack. Suddenly, the warrior performs an aerial attack, while the creature tries to counterattack. With a quick strike, he lands a guaranteed critical hit, right after teleporting into battle. At that instant, he manages to strike the monster's throat. The skill is activated and his movements become faster than light. A smile starts to form on the protagonist's face, who looks extremely satisfied. While walking down the stairs, he reflects on the incredible situation. The copied abilities from Li Dao and Kim Yu were amazing beyond the ones he already had. By combining some of them, it will be possible to face monsters from beginner zones. Upon entering the apartment, he notices everything is quiet and peaceful. However, he starts to suspect that something strange is going on. Suddenly, he approaches and notices something on the countertop. With one of his hands, he touches the hamburger and realizes that everything is very cold. A thought starts forming in his mind. Suddenly, the girl opens the door of one of the rooms, waking up from a deep sleep. Confused, he looks back at the girl. She asks why he arrived so late. The protagonist asks Yamjang if no one had dinner. Still tired, the girl replies that she thought it was a good idea to wait for him so they could all eat together. Realizing the situation, he tries to explain that she should have eaten. However, the girl says she wasn't hungry and he asks why. Her eyes fill with tears as she tells him that she had a nightmare where he died, and besides that, he wasn't answering his phone. While hugging him, she says she was very scared because she couldn't reach him. But the protagonist was fine and tried to comfort Yunjong, who seemed extremely worried. Suddenly, another child appears wearing his blue pajamas. The boy was also completely terrified because of his big brother's delay. Despite everything, now everyone could eat chicken together. The hero had promised that he would give more attention to the kids when he got back, but because of work, everything fell apart. The three sit around the table and start devouring the chicken like a happy family. Outside, it was already late and the night dominated the environment. In bed, both children were already in a deep sleep. Meanwhile, the protagonist was fiddling with something on his phone. With the objective in hand, he was taking some photos and realized everything was ready. Now he just needed to register the product and wait for a potential buyer. Even so, he seemed a bit indecisive and observant. For him, it was a waste to sell only Karen's Blessing and Mountain Splitter. Slowly, his fingers approach the card, but he fails to acquire a new ability due to incompatibility with the user. Even so, he was willing to make a copy, but that didn't work either. At that moment, he realized he had no other option. Suddenly, he looks surprised as a message about core generation appears. The boy's head starts hurting instantly with the creation of a new function. According to the system, he gained additional points and new abilities. Without understanding anything, the noise started becoming louder and louder inside his mind. Carefully, he watches the loading of the core generation, which was at 1%. But he had no idea what that meant since he had never heard anything about it from Kill Hyong. Even so, he seemed anxious to discover what he would find at the end of AD loading. The energy starts spreading completely throughout his body. With a thoughtful expression, he reflects on the sensation he had when awakening. The color of his eyes changes to a bright blue, and he decides the best thing to do is check his status. The destroyed buildings seem abandoned and uninhabited. In the middle of the street, a vehicle crosses the city's debris. Inside the vehicle, the hero uses the system to input a search term. The original system is divided into two systems, the master system and the copy system. The master system is the central system responsible for the derivative system spread across the dimension. The system is not awakened, but rather an independent entity. Meanwhile, the copy system is an awakened system that only works with one user, being able to copy all abilities and also capable of recommending them to each other and creating new ones. The copies applied to all life forms with a derivative system that the protagonist seemed not to fully understand. While climbing a few more floors, he reflected on all that information, thinking that he could copy abilities from monsters. After walking a long path, he finally reached his destination. To recover his strength, he decided to drink some water. In the end, he believed that the information was really useful, reflecting on its functionality. Shortly after, he decides to open his status window. The user Crow Janyuk, 25 years old, was in the class Copymaster and Core was at level 1 with some power increases. At that moment, he noticed some changes in the status window. The details on the screen listed his abilities, additional points, and attributes, and he also noticed the creation of a new status. With a smile on his face, Trojan Hyuk watches the activation of the All-Stars plus 100 option from the Twilight Bracelet, boosting his stats. He was happy with the status increase and curious to check the core. The recharge point was probably the amount that could be charged. In a moment of reflection, he thinks that the power consumption could mean that more than 20,000 could be used. If the bracelet options were added, he could produce everything with great efficiency. However, he knew that the most curious thing was that the stats were only at level 1. His hope was to believe that with the level increase, the stats would also grow. Suddenly, he hears a strange sound coming from the lower part of the building. His feet quickly move toward the edge of the building. At that moment, he notices something unusual and tries to draw attention to himself, walking through the streets of the destroyed city with a powerful monster. Without wasting time, he opens the city map to observe every corner. As expected, there was no one living in the surroundings, making the place perfect for the test. Meanwhile, the creature's expression showed all its discontent. Koi Jan-yuk didn't waste time and ran to the parking lot to observe more closely. Apparently, his enemy had no eyes, but seemed extremely powerful. Standing still, the boy waited for the best opportunity to start the fight. His eyes change color, and he activates his power weapon. According to the system, he could choose the type of weapon to be used, such as a spear, a sword, or a dagger. The creature was already losing its patience and started letting out a scream. Its feet began moving toward the protagonist. The best thing to do would be to summon the long bow to fight against that powerful enemy. Suddenly, the weapon begins to form in his hands. At that moment, the protagonist starts to understand why Park Gango was so strong. But there was no time for reflective thoughts since his opponent was coming at full force. Koi Junha prepares his bow and assumes an attack position. The arrow flies toward the monster's face, hitting it precisely. Using his weapon, he fires quick and critical shots. With determination in his eyes, he realizes he had maximized not only the core but everything else. Meanwhile, his opponent is being attacked in various ways and could not hold back desperate screams. Shortly after, the creature starts losing what little balance it still had. But Choi Jan-hyuk wanted to continue the fight, so he runs toward his opponent. With a jump, he asks the system to switch to the longsword. Smiling, he seems extremely confident, thinking that he had inherited Park Gango's complete abilities. Getting closer to the creature, he grips his sword tightly. In the end, his goal was to become as strong as his hero. With one strike, he directs his movements toward the body of the horrendous creature. Shards could be seen all over the dark night as the monster lay fallen. The protagonist seems very satisfied with that fight for defeating his enemy. Looking at his phone, he realizes that an hour and 20 minutes had already passed. However, he believed it was very late, and if he were to consider all the other demons in the vicinity, it would take another 30 minutes. Suddenly, he notices that his phone was ringing. Looking at the screen, he sees that it was the Agreement Association. Confused, he wonders if he should answer the call due to the late hour, but he seems very curious to find out who is calling. On the other side, a woman introduces herself as Kim Juvie from the reception team. Without saying exactly what she needed, she asks if the boy was awake. Kim Ji explains that she received a sudden call from the secretary's office. Upon hearing that the president of the association wanted to have a private meeting with him, Jun-hyuk notices the appearance of the monster. Without losing focus on the call, he tries to gather more information about the meeting. Before setting a time, he needed to know when the president would arrive. The receptionist informs him that his schedule was the same as every day at 7 a.m. At that moment, the clock showed 6:20 a.m., but the protagonist would be at the designated place at 7 a.m. Meanwhile, the monster was getting closer and closer. Without prolonging the subject, Jun-hyuk was sure that he could arrive in 30 minutes. Hanging up his phone, he turned all of his attention to a new challenge. With intense footsteps, the creature was quickly approaching. Wielding his shield, he activated the stun charge. The aberration's attack was immediately interrupted. With his eyes glowing again, he advances using the lightning strike. Suddenly, he manages to reach his enemy's back by being faster than light. Upon touching its skin, he receives the option to copy the ability of the lowest-ranking soldier of the Vargo Grace. Without wasting time, he accepts and lets the system handle everything. With a jump, he lands back on ground. Shortly after, the skill copy was already fully complete. Using the power of his voice, the warrior asks to open the subspace. A bright and colorful energy, probably from a C-grade crystal, appears before him, indicating that something important was detected. With the crystal in his hands, he could absorb it to raise the core's level. At the same moment, the absorption of the C-grade crystal is initiated. The energy begins to spread throughout the protagonist's body. Inside his mind, his only thought was to raise the core level to save time. With the complete transformation, Choi Jung-guk was curious about what kind of fight awaited him. Meanwhile, the sun's rays spread across the landscape. Shortly after, the protagonist passes through a portal, returning to an urban area. Looking at his phone, he thinks that with that growth rate, he would be able to significantly reduce the time until the second awakening. The clock shows 6:55 in the morning. A sound starts forming in the young man's stomach. Alone, he begins to notice hunger spreading throughout his body. Soon after, he finds himself in an elevator next to a woman. Opening the system, he decides to check the details of the newly copied skill. With an expression of curiosity and confusion, he seems unable to understand the recognition of the lowest-ranking soldier. Following the explanation, the recognition would be made by the lowest-ranking soldiers of the Vargo Grace who would not attack him. Leaving the elevator, he keeps reflecting on that kind of attack prevention. While following the secretary, he thought it would be a powerful skill to use when alone. The woman stops and opens a heavy door. With a friendly expression, she asks the boy to enter the room. The gay-haired man in a suit seems very pleased to see Crow Jang Yuk. Even with some shyness, the boy calmly enters the room. The chief asks him to sit in the chair and make himself comfortable. Smiling, he asks if he could speak informally with the protagonist, not seeing it as a bad situation. He immediately agrees, since the man seemed to be doing that from the start. First, he shows that he is impressed with the boy's punctuality. The president of the association seems not to understand when Juk starts mentioning all the tasks he performed for his siblings. For a moment, the two remain silent, just exchanging glances. But shortly after, the chief starts laughing out loud. Despite everything, he believed the boy's words were less of a joke. Changing the subject, he decides to get straight to the main point. Meanwhile, the hero waits attentively for the formulation of the sentence. Without wasting time, he reports that the association wanted to make a proposal. The president wanted the young man to refuse all recruitment offers from foreign guilds and stay in Korea. Thoughtful, the warrior says nothing and analyzes the situation. Contrary to the gay-haired man's expectations, he informs that he had never received any offer to join a foreign guild. According to the research, major guilds from the United States were showing interest in recruiting Jungkook. That information seemed completely new to the boy. Despite feeling embarrassed, the president admits that the test data was hacked and the information might have reached the guilds. Believing that all of this was a complete misunderstanding, the young man asks if people knew about his rank. Without wasting time, the man responds that everyone was aware of it. However, Cho Janik did not believe that being ranked C was something so impressive as he was only a first awakener. The second awakeners were classified as rank C due to certain statistics. In the end, the protagonist felt there was nothing different about himself compared to them. Koin Jun Hyuk does not know how to react to the facts presented. Focused, the man says that by maximizing the second awakening, he could aim for rank as straight away. The protagonist thinks that with the second awakening secured, he could have abilities comparable to a third awakener and even have a chance at rank S. Considering the boy's abilities, he was extremely valuable, and the association believed that was highly attractive. Therefore, they couldn't just stand by and watch someone so talented be taken away. While receiving a notebook from the secretary, he informs that he had prepared 3 conditions. First, he would receive an initial support fund of 1 billion. Second, total tax exemption limited to his group. Lastly, he would receive 2 parts of an A-rank equipment set provided completely free of charge. Handing him a pen, the president states that the contract period would last until the second awakening. Now, Choi Jungkook had only one mission: accept the conditions and sign the contract. But the protagonist seems suspicious, reminding them that he was only a rank C. Despite hearing the proposal, he informs that he was not convinced. All that support offered, just to prevent him from moving to another city, seemed suspicious. So, he wanted to know if there were other conditions. Suddenly, the president stands up from his chair, realizing that the boy was very observant. The association's condition was that he could not naturalize in another country during the contract period. Leaning on the table, he explains that the young man could not join a guild and should consult them to participate in expeditions. Additionally, if the association requested the boy's participation in a raid, he would have to prioritize it under any circumstances. In other words, no kind of obstacle would be allowed between Cho Young Hyuk and the association. In the end, no guilt of the warrior's own choosing. These were the final conditions, but he would have little time to consider the proposal. The president informs that the offer would expire the moment he contacted other guilds. However, the protagonist seemed to perfectly understand the situation and sign the contract. Confused, the man in the suit offered some time for him to think, but the young man was determined and already knew his goals. With determination, the two shake hands, sealing the deal. Outside the city is bustling with people walking everywhere. In a restaurant, a girl examines the menu options with an employee. Suddenly, a child gets excited upon realizing they are in a big shopping mall. Koi Jang-yukon brought his 2 siblings for a family outing. Excited, the boy asks if he could look at some t-shirts. Yam Jang seems worried about all the noise from her brother. The hero is having fun. Both are amazed to hear that they could choose a few items to buy. With a smile on his face, the hero says his siblings could choose the 10 items they like the most. Happiness spreads across the children's faces as they celebrate together. Everything was happening in an unexpected way, but he knew he had to wait until the end of the protection period. Koi Jan-hyuk was worried about possible problems along this journey. Suddenly, Yinjong shows her brother a beautiful blue dress. Inyul immediately likes the outfit and says his sister should get it. An employee approaches and asks the children not to touch the clothes on display like that. Meanwhile, Junie reflects on the list of things he should do relating it to past events. At that moment, he tells the employee not to worry about anything since he will be buying the clothes. Either way, before completing that list, he had absolutely no intention of leaving Korea. Suddenly, a warning for shoppers informs that an unexpected gate has opened inside the mall. The information is repeated once more, showing the real situation to the customers. Additionally, they ask everyone to stay calm and follow the staff's instructions. Amid the crowd, a woman reports that hunters from Tibet would be arriving soon. According to the orders, everyone should stay inside the mall, but customers already wanted to leave as quickly as possible. Outside, everything was even more dangerous, and the best thing to do was to follow the woman for a safe evacuation. Suddenly, chaos takes over the place as people start running in desperation. Koi Jang-guk observes the situation that was about to unfold, feeling the tense atmosphere. Being a hunter, he was willing to check what was happening, but asked the employee to take care of his siblings. Benjang seems extremely worried about his safety, warning that it was very dangerous out there. According to the young man's memories, there were 5 D-rank monsters near the store. That day, a building collapsed due to the monsters that followed the refugees into the large shopping mall. His hands begin to tremble, feeling anger about everything happening at that moment. He crouches down and asks Yunjong to take care of her brother Yunil. Knowing that the Tibet Guild would only arrive after all the destruction, he leaves determined to face the monsters. In the end, he would have to endure the situation completely alone, anxiously waiting for reinforcements. The arrival of the monsters causes complete despair in the streets. Calmly, an officer tries to guide people to take shelter inside the mall. The atmosphere becomes tense with people fighting among themselves, try to rush even more. Meanwhile, the monsters start spreading throughout the city. There are 5 in total, ready to destroy everything in their path. Upon hearing his screams, the creatures begin to look around. People keep running in terror, pushing each other. Koi Jang-yuk stands in the middle of the group, letting everyone pass quickly by him. At that moment, despair takes over his face as he realizes he was completely alone. The giants were coming toward him, and he no longer knew the best way to defend himself. With a tense expression, he decides to open the subspace. Beside him, a portal is formed for him to choose his abilities. A terrifying aura spreads through the air, showing all the fury present in the creature. The young man could not let any of them pass. He had to protect his brother at all costs. According to his shield, it was ready to take down each of his enemies. With the swift movement activated, he would trick the opponent with quick movements. The strike manages to hit the opponent's leg with tremendous force. Upon feeling the attack, the creature lets out a powerful scream of pain. Using his speed to his advantage, he moves throughout the area, confusing his enemies. Suddenly, he stops running and observes the situation. Those abominations follow the protagonist's movements and turn their bodies. Jan Haya provokes his opponents, calling them to fight. The 5 seem irritated by that boy's arrogance. Without wasting time, they start running toward their small target. On a street, vehicles pile up in the middle of the city traffic. A man grows increasingly angry, realizing that the vehicle wouldn't move. The street had been blocked because of the cars trying to leave, and not even the police were managing the situation. Irritated, he realizes this was a terrible time to be stuck in traffic. Suddenly, he feels a hand on his shoulder. His colleague tries to calm Dasu in every possible way. The fight happening in the city was being broadcast live. At the center of it all, Jernyuk was trying to hold off the creatures using all his skills. Filming the fight, a young man tells viewers that he was impressed by the courage of the unknown fighter. Inside the car, the men watch the broadcast on their phone attentively. At that moment, the memory of the young man comes instantly to Dao's mind. Without wasting time, he informs that he knew the young man who was fighting completely alone. His colleague asks who that guy was, seeming very curious to know his identity. With a smile on his face, Dao says the boy was his fan. Confused, his friend seems not to understand what he was talking about. The man explains that upon returning from Thailand, he met a fan at the association, but couldn't remember his name. Meanwhile, the young man tries to stream the best moments of the fight, risking his life. He knew that if the unknown fighter died, he would be next. With his equipment, he continues reporting, showing all his professionalism in ignoring the danger to record the urgent situation. In the end, The young man asks his followers to be generous and make donations. The comments reveal the viewer's shock as they discuss frantically. One of them claimed that even Dao would be incapable of fighting like that. Upon reading that comment, the man becomes extremely confused and bothered by the doubts about his abilities. Without wasting any time, he immediately gets out of the vehicle. Meanwhile, his friend looks worried and seems not to understand his movements. However, Dao was determined to study people in any way. With determination on his face, nothing could stop his goals. He gets out of the car, leaving his colleague completely alone. At that moment, people begin to follow the master immediately. One of the warriors asks the man to step aside, who seems not to understand the situation. Suddenly, all the warriors were beside Disu and ready for battle. His final order is for Zhou Huanwu to investigate who that new face was. Without knowing his name, he warns that he wouldn't get much information. But the chief remembered the identity, Kim Jong-uk. In the end, the captain wanted to know if all members were ready for battle. Their expressions reveal a determination to protect the people and the city by following the master's orders. Now, everyone could head straight into the battle together. Hearing the command, they all start running toward the fight. Like a fierce blow, one of the monsters tries to hit the warrior, but he is faster and manages to dodge with all his acquired skills. Even so, the impact causes him to fall to the ground. His face is already covered in sweat due to the intense fight. In his thoughts, he begins to pray for some kind of help since the fight was unfair. This was the best opportunity to use the super sense. In every way, he tries not to be reckless and avoids the most difficult strikes. His enemies were terrifying and completely insane besides being powerful abominations. Junhyuk tries to run as fast as possible, but he knows that facing two monsters at once was anything but simple. He starts to slow down and stops near the creature's claws. With a roar, the monster seems to observe the best chance to attack. At that moment, the protagonist realizes that his plan worked, successfully tricking the opponent. However, he notices an unusual situation and becomes completely confused. With a surprise attack, the opponent tries to use its giant paw to trample him. Diso arrives with his team, all ready to help as much as possible. The powerful shield protects his face as he gets closer and closer. With the stun enhancement activated, gathering all his strength and skills, he manages to deliver a powerful blow. The creature is completely disoriented, not understanding where the strike came from. Jan Hyuk is amazed to see his idol sharing the same battle with him. His orders are for Kim Da-hun and Jinong Su Jang to take care of Tukon. Jae Hwan would be responsible for checking if there were other survivors around. Du is assigned to heal Cho Jan Hyuk and stay with him until the end of the fight. While settling on the ground, the boy questions the delay of the guildmaster. Noticing that the boy kept chattering, Dao realizes that he could fight against two more monsters. After being completely healed, the protagonist would have the mission to fight with a group for the defense of the city. Meanwhile, Duel spreads his powers throughout the boy's body. Instead of attracting aggro again to buy time, the best thing to do was for Junie to enter tanking mode and defeat them quickly. Handing over the shield, Dao wants to make sure the boy understands his plan. The more time was wasted, the greater the damage. From afar, they could notice another creature approaching. Now, the two are ready to fight side by side. The car runs toward them, increasing its speed more and more. In the underground shelters, people try to hide from the danger. The broadcast announced that the Tbeat Guild had already arrived at the scene, but hadn't managed to defeat any Khan. Young Jang seemed very worried while listening to that information. The employee immediately notices the little girl's fear. Calmly, Unchil asks her not to be afraid since the situation would be controlled quickly. The two continued discussing Cho Jung-hyuk's safety when new reports appeared. Finally, the group of hunters was able to defeat the first Karen. Everyone in the shelter,